That was Nick's idea, not mine. It was Nick and Richey's idea. I always wanted to kind of, go on and be the Clash and do lots of albums, and he wanted to be the fiery phoenix, which was the Sex Pistols, and explode into a million pieces into the dark November sky. But I'm glad it worked out the way this way. There's nothing special about turning 40, obviously. It is what it is. It hasn't complicated my life, but you do feel it physically a tiny bit, I suppose. That's the only thing. And yet my hair started changing colour a bit.
To be honest, I've always been a well-ordered guy when I'm not in the band. I'm obsessed with order. Life's not about the law, it's about order. I've always believed that. I believe in cleanliness and order. I just do. That's going back to when I was fucking 10 years old. But I think live is the one place we are still can turn into 22-year-old idiots with anger and hatred and entertainment and all those things that the fabulous disaster of the Sex Pistols and all those things we loved growing up. I think when we're live, you can still feel that. It's probably what sustained us over 20 years. But we've always been on our own. I think all the best bands create their own space. I don't think we've never really been part of any movement, and that's why we've lasted so long. A lot of the bands that were around when we started, they've split up, they've reformed, they've split up again, they're reforming again, or they just don't exist anymore. So I'm glad that we're not one of those. I think Radiohead have always existed in their own space, and they're still a pretty important and big band by their own rights as well.
Because it was a very, very complicated experience. It was something that could be seen as a failure or something that could be seen as interesting. I'm not quite sure. A lot of the judgment was confused, I think. A lot of people were aware of Cuba. Anybody that's politically minded is aware of the Cuban experiment. And there were just certain things that were just very obvious straight away. The poverty was very striking. But obviously the poverty is exacerbated by the US blockade and by the Cuban administrations and the American administration's intractability, and there was obviously a complete lack of free speech and free communication, but then there were just other things that were just very impressive. It was a 50-50 experience for me. I found some of it very disturbing, and I found some of it quite inspiring. The first thing was that we felt a sense of responsibility because Richey had left us these lyrics, and the timing of him leaving us the lyrics I don't think was accidental. He left them briefly before he disappeared. So we felt as if he bestowed them to us, and he probably wanted us to do something with them one day.
But then you could have used them right away.
But that would have been distasteful, I think. We wouldn't have had any distance from the event, and the event was pretty seismic. Emotionally for us and especially for his family. So to actually try and do something creative amongst something which was very traumatic for everybody would have been a bad decision. But I think there is still a massive part of our audience that were obviously interested in the way that Richey thinks about things, and they actually still respond to his lyrics. You see that when we still play songs like Faster or Die in the Summertime live,
Well, I think that goes for... That's rock and roll for you, isn't it? That's Jim Morrison, that's Ian Curtis. I think it's a brilliant piece of work anyway, so obviously I stand up for it, but rock and roll mythology is an important part of your youth. I certainly, I believed in it. It just wasn't an option. I think once we decided to use Richey's lyrics, it just felt perfectly natural and a bit of a relief, really, because I think sometimes you get sick of your own voice, the voice in your head that writes lyrics. You become repetitive, and so it just felt like a really good break, and there's no kind of ego involved. It actually just felt like a real relief to write lyrics from someone and you admire, and you kind of in slight awe of. I must admit, I've always been in awe of Richey's bravery, and he goes to places I could never go to. We wanted something sonically akin to In Utero. I think In Utero was the touchstone. Sound-wise, something big and deep with little bits of detail flying around, the rawness of it, the realness of it. There's lots of other records we like that he's done as well. I really like him. I think Razorblade Suitcase by Bush, which Steve did, is a fantastic sounding record. Made them sound like a really good band.
Bush?
Yeah. It's a terrible band, but he if you're just talking purely in a recording sense, he made them sound really good. and they're absolute shite. Swallowed was the track. Swallowed. But no, I'm just talking in purely in recording sense. He made them sound really good.
Find them quite complicated and cryptic. Did you understand them in perfect?
Not everything, no. And in the past, there are some lyrics in the past which, when Richey was around and I wrote the music to them, that sometimes I used to have to ask for clarification. So that was an experience that's not strange for me.
There's always been that dichotomy in the Manics where, we don't understand each other sometimes. It's much more a version of telepathy where you kind of know things are right because you've known each other so long, I think.
Aren't they quite tongue-twisting to sing?
Oh yeah, but that's always been the case with some of Richey's lyrics. I mean, hopefully that is the one element of us that was quite original. They're kind of like, there were words sometimes that sounded like they shouldn't have been sung, but somehow they are sung. I like that. I mean, the first song on the Holy Bible, yes. I mean, there are probably more words in that song than it should ever be allowed. But that's why it's rewarding as a singer. And that's why it probably, as a singer, it does trigger an emotional response, because it challenges you physically as well as intellectually.
I mean, I got to be honest, Motorcycle Emptiness is not a well-structured lyric, is it?
No, but
culture sucks down. Nothing rhymes, nothing fits really, but it just works.
What do you think is more important in Manic songs?
The actual solo projects didn't come out of a frustration of something that we weren't expressing within the band. I think it came out of a frustration of knowing that we'd lost our direction within the band and we needed to just take a break from it. So, the solo projects were a strange way of just trying to take a holiday from the band so we could reinvigorate ourselves back when we came back from our experiences as solo artists.
Have you been close to a split up then?
I think we've had periods. Where we questioned the existence of the band. I don't think it had much to do with any pivotal events or arguments or anything like that. I just think we, as people, we're just quite restless in terms of our day-to-day states of happiness or unhappiness, and I just think that at some points we just question the creative impetus of the band.